remember. Welcome to another episode of a new real estate roadmap podcast or something like that. I probably messed it up. Where we dive into how you do stuff, the cool real estate stuff in non-traditional ways, because all of the hosts here, we do real estate in pretty unique ways that the gurus don't teach you stuff. So my name is Cusimano. We have, who's with us today?
Jen Konikoff.
And Alex Mendel.
And one more.
Dave Kimbough.
Dave. So Dave's our special guest here. So I got to say, behind the scenes, when you do a podcast, people reach out quite often to be guests, and most of the time we don't take them on. But Dave has a very interesting situation that I think can serve all of us as real estate agents listening, or just business people in general. And what really excited me about Dave, and he's going to tell us more, he consistently closes 100 plus transactions and doesn't really lose his nights and weekends while handling that. And I'm fascinated by that whole thing. If you want to talk about that, Dave, to start off, and after you introduce yourself.
Tell us your ways, Dave.
Your secrets.
Well, I certainly can do that. I will say that I'm not sure the 100 plus transactions for me personally are going to hold up this year, right?
It's a rough year.
It's a little bit of a rough year, but overall really good. Interesting, Chris, I was reading your bio. We have an awful lot in common, although you're much younger than I am. I too got into real estate back in 2002 and ended up having twins in 2004.
Wow.
So how I got into real estate is I used to be in the pharmaceutical industry. So it was a situation to where in 2001 my first wife passed away, and the guy who was selling my house said, "Hey, you should try real estate." And I thought, well, that's a really stupid idea because I'm going to move back to Atlanta and go to work as a district manager for a biotech company. We're from the South, right? From Alabama, as my family's originally from Alabama, and but you know what? I prayed about it and I thought, all right, I'll give it a try, right? I felt peaceful about it. And so, about a year later, I got remarried. About a year later, we ended up having twins. And so there's a lot of parallels there when reading your bio about changing diapers and going back for feedings and all of that stuff. I'll tell you what, man, brother, twins is, we were 35 and 36 when we had our kids, and that's a whole nother ballgame, right?
Yeah, your knees don't work. Your knees and lower back don't work as well as when you're in your 20s to pick them up and all that.
Yeah,
Dude,
double
not
the
even
trouble
close.
there.
Nothing worked. Nothing worked as good as I needed it to work.
Dave, listen to this, man. Listen to this. Not to derail. I was actually wearing this shirt a couple of days ago when I was at a house and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, okay, yeah, don't wear that shirt ever again until you drop 10 pounds, or unless the camera doesn't focus below my shoulders. But anyways, that motivated me. That motivated me to get back into a more cardio thing, So yesterday I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do what I used to do in cardio wise. I'll do some burpees and all that. My knees just said, nope, just not happening, bro.
Yeah, wait till you're 55, bro. Right? Wait till you're
Low
55
impact
and
is
you
what we
weigh
need.
210. Right? Try that on the old.
I'm hoping AI has a solution by then. Sorry, Jen, what?
Well, I was like, your biceps are probably on par here, because twins, you have like the double carrier. You're banging over here, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
In your upper body.
last thing too is not to make it too convoluted, but I moved to Grand Junction, Colorado from Boca Raton.
Oh,
Actually, I lived in Boynton Beach, right off Jog Road.
Yeah, that's
Where?
where I am.
I know. See, I knew you were going to ask me. It was 30 years ago, man. I can't remember the address, but it was right off of Jog Road. I worked down there, and I covered all the way from, West Palm Beach up to North Dade County.
this might be a sore subject for Alex, though. I have a closing today of a house in Boynton Beach off Jog Road. Alex and I competed for the listing.
The one that you guys competed for?
Oh, yeah, but how long did it take you to
It took a
list
while.
it?
It took a while to sell, man.
I've been keeping an eye on it. I was like, oh, I'm going to snatch it up if you can't sell it.
Yeah. No, it took a while. Thanks. It was a lot of work. I think all listings are a lot of work. But the funny thing is that, sorry, Dave, we just derailed, but we'll go back.
Oh, you're good.
From contract to closing this was the smoothest transaction I probably had in like 5 years. There was no problems whatsoever.
Until the last 24 hours.
Until this morning when we find out, but we fixed it. Well, I fixed it.
Right.
Anyways.
That's how they call you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Anyways, Dave, so that's actually pretty cool. And then, okay, so hold on. So you moved to Atlanta and
No, I used to live in Boynton, and then I moved to Grand Junction. Ended up in the pharmaceutical industry. My first wife had passed away, and I just needed a new gig, right? So the guy who was selling my house said, "Hey, you should try real estate." And I thought, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that, but whatever. Then I ended up deciding to do that. Year later, ended up getting remarried. And at that time, it was just right place, right time, right message. My career just took off. My first year I did, 18 deals, I think. Second year I did like 36 deals. Third year I had done 59. This is back in the day where you still had, what's the fax where you had to fax everything. There was no electronic signatures. We would sign contracts on the hood of our car.
yeah, I started there in those days. I'm not too far behind you. But hold on, I could have swore you said something about Atlanta, Georgia earlier. Did I miss
So
that?
yeah, so I went to the University of Alabama, and my parents are from Birmingham and Gadsden, Alabama, and I was going to move back. A friend of mine, when my wife passed away, I was still in the pharmaceutical industry, and he's like, "Hey, dude, come back home, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yep, I think I will do that." And then I was selling my house, and the guy said, "You should try this," and I thought, all right, maybe we'll give it a whirl.
Well, you gave it a whirl and you did 18 transactions your first sale without the tech that we have today.
Yeah.
How? What's your secret?
So, actually, it was really a good thing because I was tapped into the hospitals pretty good, right? Because of my pharma background.
Database.
So I knew a lot of people. My first wife was also one of the surgical nurses there. So we knew a lot of physicians and a lot of people here in Grand Junction. So it was just one of those things where I networked. But my career really took off in 2004 as I joined I did Craig Proctor. Right.
Okay.
And so I did the whole.
I was a buyer's agent for a Craig Proctor team, so I'm.
Oh, you were?
Very familiar.
Yeah, you're home sold guaranteed, or I'll buy it for cash. Let me tell you,
Yep.
that rocked my market. So our market's a little bit of a different size market because we're only 130,000 people, but we're 4 hours from Denver, 5 hours from Salt Lake City. So we're literally out in the middle of nowhere. It isn't like the South where you got towns every 6 miles.
Yeah.
We're a long way from anywhere. So it was a really interesting place to be, and you were able to really make a big market impact in a small market at a relatively affordable cost, to be quite honest with you. So it was right background, right message, right everything for when I got started in the industry, and things just kind of took off from there.
So there wasn't. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. So you actually you piqued my attention, especially for any agents that are starting out and they're transitioning. You had a transition in your career, and you said you had you networked pretty much every day in your first career. How did you transition the perspective of your database as from what your previous career was to now your new career, and how are you able to translate that message across? Because that's something new agents struggle with. They're like, no, but everyone sees me as XYZ. How did you push through that and really use them and captivate your audience there as now potential clients?
Well, it's an interesting thing too, because back in those days, and let me tell you, I wasn't, I got into real estate thinking I'd sell a dozen houses a year and lower my handicap from a 7 to a 3, right? Let's be honest about it. And I went to Howard Brenton's Star Power University. You guys ever heard of Howard Brenton?
No, tell us more.
Okay, it's because you guys are like way young. He used to be a real big time coach for Remax, right? He was tied. He was tied in quite extensively with Remax, and so I went to what's called Listing University, and I was, maybe this is like my second year, first year, second year. It was really early on in my career, and at the beginning of this Listing University, there's like 100 people, and the first night they get everybody to stand up and tell a little bit about yourself, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so embarrassing, right? Because they're like, how many houses do you sell? And they're like, everybody's like 850 or whatever, some crazy numbers.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my God. So I stood up and I'm like, I think I've sold 4, at the time. I mean, I had just gotten started, but I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And the funny thing about it is I got a standing ovation.
Oh, wow.
At this thing because
that must be some message.
Huh?
That must have been some message that you delivered.
What people came up afterwards and says, I can't believe you just started, you've sold 4 houses, and you're here trying to become, a listing agent, right? Nobody becomes a listing agent your first 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But I knew at 35, 36 years old, I didn't have a long runway on a career, right? I left a really good career, so my career had to happen fast, right? I mean, if I couldn't do the traditional, getting back to your point, Jen, I couldn't do the traditional work your sphere, knock your people down little by little. You know what I mean? That wasn't going to cut it for me, right? I left a very good job, and I had to make money, and now I had twins and had all this other stuff going on. So
Yep.
for me, when I started, you talked about the networking and stuff. Yes, that's part of it. But at that time in my career, I was looking for anything I could do to create splash, right? Splash in my market, because like I said, it's a long way from anywhere, and the real estate's still being done to this day in my market, largely traditionally, right? There's not a whole lot of innovation. There's just not a lot. We're kind of behind the times, right? So at that time, we were really behind the times. So if you did anything that was outside of the box, I mean, it was like shocker, right? Shock to the system, and everybody noticed. So when I dropped the Craig Proctor system, let me tell you, it was like, I went from 59 deals, hired an assistant, went to 84 deals. I mean, it was just Katie bar the door. I picked up builders that I worked with for years, blah, blah, blah. So my sphere, like, I'd love to tell people and tell people what a great job I did at the Buffini side of business and cultivate my sphere and all that stuff. I really didn't. I didn't do a very good job at that, frankly. But I don't think that's necessarily how you should do it. But in today's day and age, but that's how I did it, and it happened.
And I love
So,
that you saw an opportunity there too, where like you said, you just had to show that splash of a difference, and you stood out.
well, and it's like I learned a long time ago. It is like, if you work, nobody would outwork me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a goal. I knew what I had to do. I knew what time frame I had to do it in, and it was just like, let's go, right? So
It was the guaranteed sale program that kind of set the splash into your market that
100%.
launched it?
Yep, no question.
Is that still something that you're advertising today?
No, we've moved away from it. I got in trouble with that in 2009, 10, 11, 12, right? Not in
Oh,
trouble with it, but it just became very difficult, right?
did you buy a lot of houses at that time? Or
Well,
sell
you
it
had
for free?
everybody, it was just a different deal, right? I mean, back in those days, like over the last few years, or the last couple of years where the market has slowed down a little bit, buyers have pulled out of the game and sellers have pulled out of the game, and
Yep.
nobody's really replaced them, right? Back in those days, when you had the market falling on its ear, you had buyers and sellers that evaporated from the marketplace, but they replaced themselves with other buyers and sellers, right? Distressed. So you still had business, you still had people, you still had the numbers, you just had a different clientele, right? So you had to adjust to that. And when you're running guaranteed sale program and the market's losing a percent and a half a month, everybody's like, yeah, dude, come buy my house. I
Yeah.
I owe, I
Exactly.
owe 380 on it. I'm like, oh, it's worth 310. What, how does that work? How come you're not going to buy our house? Right? It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, I'm not smart, but I'm really not that dumb either, right? I can't just buy your house at a loss, right? So it just
Why
became,
not?
yeah, exactly, right? It became very difficult to manage. So
You didn't know that we're gonna have a pandemic in 11 years that you could have rode the wave?
Alex would have killed to have bought like 200 houses in 2009. I bought
Yeah,
a
we
hand,
all have that regret.
yeah, I bought a handful, but at that time I didn't have enough money to do it, right? So it was just one of those things. So it's all good, but I should have worked my sphere gen better, but the way we did it, it worked so well, and we were able to garner new clients, not sphere clients, but new clients so easily and so cost effectively that
Mhm.
that became the name of the game,
Yeah,
right?
so it sounds like it's just continued to snowball. There was no reason to quite tap into your sphere just yet, because of that effect.
Yeah.
So kudos.
How has your systems evolved over the years to what it is today, moving away from that guaranteed sale program?
Well, so what I also realized was in 2009, we were a little bit behind you guys because we have a large natural gas reserve north of our town, right? So when the rest of the country was hitting the skids in 2007, we were still setting records, right? 2007, 2008, we were setting records here. And so when everybody else would go to these conferences, everybody'd be like, oh my God, we're dying here, right? And we're like, I don't know what's going on with you guys. We're killing it, you know? Little did we know, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that it hit us a couple of years late. But what we realized in that downturn, the systems for expectation selling. So I've got two partners, my sister Jan and a buddy of ours, Mason, who's a real estate agent up in Boise. Where that really started was in 2009, 10, 11, and 12, because what was happening is I was carrying 60, 70, 80 listings at a time, and they weren't selling, right? And so my life was, it was chaos before, but when you're pulling checks, chaos is acceptable, right? I mean, I don't know about for you guys, but for me at the time, and my kids were little, right? So they didn't know. They were just like, okay, dad's working, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're, 4 or 5. But when it got to the point where they got older and my life was just, I was a train wreck, right? I was an absolute train wreck. I was answering phone calls at all hours of the day. People were pissed. I mean, they were unhappy. It wasn't me. It was the circumstances that they were in. But somebody's got to pay the piper, right? And so it just happened to be the real estate agent who didn't get their home sold.
It's always our fault.
They're coming to you with all their emotions.
Right.
Well, yeah, they look at it like I hired you to do this job. This job's not getting done. And Jen and I had this conversation the other day, how as real estate agents, we tend, was it you, Jen, or was it with JD? It was one of you two, maybe both of you.
It was both.
Oh, it was both of us, see? I remember JD chiming in on it, where we as real estate agents, we take on the responsibilities that isn't our fault all too often. You know what I mean? Like, so we give advice to our clients. On our team, we have a series of standards that we provide. And if they don't meet those standards often and the house doesn't sell, we still feel guilty. Like it's not our fault that the market has adjusted. It's not our fault that you have wood rot and water seeped and caused damage in your house. It's not, these things aren't our fault, but because these things happen and their house didn't sell because of these outside factors, we still kind of take on that burden, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't.
100% we do, right? I mean, good agents do, right? I know agents who don't.
Well, empathic agents do, like the relationship-based agents do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So everything really started for us. I mean, I'll back up really quickly. Sorry, it's kind of like scattered, but
it's all good.
Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome home.
I think I got a bottle of tequila. You guys need to come visit.
I got a bunch over here.
Right? But it really started the expectation selling portion of what we did. Really, I guess if I really trace it back, was when I got remarried, right? That is when it started, because my wife also had a very good career. And we sat down and had a discussion about how we wanted our family to be structured. This is going to sound goofy, right?
No, smart move.
Conversation we used to have.
It wasn't intended, right? But I look back on it and I'm like, oh my gosh, how pivotal was this in my life, right? Not my career, but my life, right? And so we said, she's like, you know what? I want to stay at home with the kids. And I'm like, I want you to, right? We're a traditional family, and good. Family values are number one. Family time is number two, right? I mean, there's all these things. So we had this conversation. I said, you know what? She's like, okay, I'll take care of the house, right? I will do this stuff. You go out there and bust your ass and you earn, right? Which is what I wanted to do, right? I just need a challenge. I just need a goal. I just like to kill stuff. That's all I like to do. And so she's like, do it. And that permission that she gave me to do it back in 2005, right, was like the key to freedom, right? Because I never had to look back ever again and say, am I not holding up my end of the deal?
Yeah.
Right.
And that guilt, that internal guilt of like, what if, that my spouse feels that I'm depriving them of this attention. You guys have created such a great dialogue that it gave you that ability. I think that's spot on.
Well,
Can your wife come talk to my wife, Dave?
Huh?
Can your wife come talk to my wife? I'm pretty sure sometime in this podcast that'll be
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we created a contract, and then when my kids were old enough to know better, right, we created a contract with them, right? Because we saw what it was. And then again, it took, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to make football. I'm going to make baseball, basketball, whatever it is, swimming. I'll be there for that. Right.
But at these
And
times,
I'll be there for dinner every night. I haven't missed a family dinner. I've missed a few, right? I'll never say never, right? Because people say, oh, yes, you did. Yeah, I missed a few, but the vast majority, I'll bet you 5 or 6 nights a week, even early in my career, I was able to have dinner with my family. It was a priority, right? And if somebody called and said, hey, I can meet you at 5, it's like, you know what? I'll meet you at 7, right? If
yeah.
you can't, because I got dinner with my family. And that to me was something that was that was a high priority for us, right? And so we just started to set out these boundaries, and then life got a little bit out of control, right? Like I was telling you guys. And so what I found out, am I talking too much here?
No,
No.
Okay.
please.
So
But I was thinking I had dinner with my family too, but it's usually drive through on my way to an appointment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like throwing bags of food at them.
So what I found out was that I had to structure my business around my family, not my family or my life around my business. And I just wasn't going to sacrifice that, right? Not that it would have caused, who knows, maybe everybody ends up the same and we all end up the same, but I was going to make every effort to make sure that the systems that I put in place were systems that were centered around my family, but presented to clients in such a way that they would accept them or they would have to accept them,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so really a lot of trial and error, right? I'm not going to lie to you, but ultimately that's what I've been able to do. And it's just been, it's been an amazing ride, and we're fine tuning this thing every single day, right? I mean, every day we find tasks or repetitive things.
Yes, yeah.
We're like, why are we not doing it this way? So that we can make our systems better. And I mean,
It's
on it, yeah.
it's
Go
funny you
ahead.
say that. I was thinking about that earlier. It's like even though I'm 20 something years in the game, I'm still taking meetings on how to make things better and finding it's like a never ending moving target in our game because things are always changing and markets are always changing and systems are always changing and people are always changing, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, ultimately, what we found out that if you set an expectation with people up front,
Yes.
regardless of what it's about, they'll accept it.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, they'll accept it, and your problem is over, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
even
get the tough conversations out of the way early on
Yeah.
to provide those expectations so that you don't have to come back to why didn't you tell me or you never mentioned this. Well, as a
Mhm.
matter of fact, we had this conversation. We laid
Yep.
out everything on the table first. That way we can tackle whatever comes our way accordingly.
It's all about pre-framing them.
oh
And the,
my gosh, yeah,
yeah, and the truth be told, that 1 out of 10 time, that person likely wasn't going to hire you anyways,
dude, I'm
right?
so glad they didn't,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and if they did, they would have been a pain in the butt.
Every time I do something and I get outside of the
Yes,
structure,
every time. Yep, I know what you're
every
going to
time.
say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, why? It's like I'm just begging for my own ass kicking, right? Um, and
So,
so,
go
I
ahead.
laugh because I know.
Dave, we had a award ceremony for Keller Williams down here in South Florida at, of all places, the Great Wolf Lodge in Naples, Florida. And I was funny, where we had our conference room was this in the a lobby of it. They have a whole conference center. It's actually pretty nice. In that lobby, my memory just flooded back of the last time I was there with my kids, where I did step out of that box for someone that I normally didn't. I was sitting in that hallway while my kids and my family are all doing a thing. I walked away because a guy demanded that I had a conversation with him in that moment about selling his house, and I knew it. I knew I caved in. Anyways, long story short, yeah, he didn't end up listening with me. He just wanted information, and I knew it. And I knew it the second I pulled away. If someone doesn't respect your standards, and doesn't respect you and your family and your time and wait for you to, then they're probably not going to hire you anyway. So they're probably just fishing for information.
well,
You
the
know?
beautiful thing about it is if you do that, like a seller, like if you have every one of my sellers have a similar, virtually identical conversation about communication, right? A lot of people don't. I find a lot of agents don't talk about how they're going to communicate and how they expect the client to communicate with them, right? There's
Mhm.
this kind of unwritten law in real estate that we're at the beck and call of the
Yeah.
client, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things that you don't have to challenge that unwritten law. All you've got to do is just like say, hey, you know what? You tell them a story. I tell them a story. Everybody's a story, right? Hey, I had this client one time. I tell them, here's my card. I write down my cell phone number. It's not on my business card, right? Everybody's like, how do you get away with that? Well, you can get away with it, right? At least in my market, I can. And so I give them my business card, and I say, hey, I'm going to give you my cell phone, right? I don't give my cell phone to everybody. Well, I actually do for the most part, but I tell them I don't give it to everybody. And they're like, you don't? I'm like, no, because, I had this seller one time
This one
who
time.
just would call me and call me and call me, right? With no respect to my time or whatever. And I said, he didn't need a real estate agent. He needed a babysitter, right? So you take a behavior and you frame it around an impression or somebody he doesn't want to be, right? And the next thing out of their mouth is, and I'm like, you don't need a babysitter. And they're like, no, I don't need a babysitter. That's great. Here's how this is going to work. And they're always like, yep, I can do this, right? And so you don't have to worry. If my phone rings after 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm either running a contract or we have an emergency, like a legitimate emergency. Not somebody broke my blind, right? Or left my door unlocked or whatever. We have a legitimate emergency. And it is just like, it's so freeing. It's crazy.
Yeah, and there's very rare there's real estate emergencies, especially at 9 p.m. Very rare.
Yeah. No.
I did have an interesting story. Oh, this is funny for a podcast. It was like 3 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, I get a call that was a real estate emergency. I have a vacant listing in Boca, and anyways, a neighbor called and she goes, Chris, you don't know me, but your listing here, the doors are wide open, and I jogged past here last night, and this morning the doors are open, the front doors are open, and I'm not going in there and getting murdered, so you need to come here. So I was like, she was actually really cool. I got her info. I added her to my database, by the way. So I flew over there because I'm like, this isn't good, right? So this is what happened. Both of the front, there are French doors, and they were open, but the deadbolt was still in. So it looked like someone kicked through the door and the deadbolt slid out. Someone went in the house, looked around, nothing was broken. It was staged, so nothing's broken, nothing's stolen, right? And then I look into the primary bedroom on the left. Someone closed the blinds. There's like blinds and slider doors. And then I walked in and got hit with a waft of turd smell. And so someone broke into the house in the middle of the night, didn't do anything, took a poop, and left.
You gotta go, man.
That was a real estate emergency. I'm like, I gotta figure out what's happening here. Anyways, so we're installing cameras. Isn't that something? That happened 2 days ago. I guess that's a real estate emergency.
That's who you asking.
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry to derail with my story that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I thought it was funny.
Good. All good.
My brother-in-law's in national security, and he tells my sister and I all the time. He's like, guys, your real estate emergencies are not actual real estate emergencies. He's like,
Yeah.
It off at this hour, and the country better be burning down for me to answer the phone call after a certain hour. It's all about boundaries. I know. What is it? 9 o'clock, between 9 and 9. That's it. I used to answer my phone at 6:30 in the morning, and now 9 a.m. It's on a clockwork.
Yeah. Well,
I'll be honest. I pretty much answer all the time.
I tell them you can call all you want to. I'm just not going to answer. Right. And then that stops it too.
So Dave, and let me know if you do this too. So this is kind of one of our strategies. When someone reaches out and they don't know, typically people already know us, but before we go, I guess whether or not they know us well, we still upfront do standards, and we'll say, hey, these are our standards at play. By the way, when someone asks what our commission is, this phone's going crazy. Someone asks what our commission is who doesn't know us, we start off with our standards. And one of those standards is exactly that you'll never, the script is something like, you'll never need to get a hold of us and not be able to during a real emergency. However, you would never need me at 9:45 p.m. So we prioritize times just as much as we do at work, but we also prioritize being a present father, mother, or parent as well. Nothing important will ever get missed. And, we start with that, but I'm guilty that I just kind of answer my phone regardless of when it is. But we do put those standards up front, and there's not a lot of, I don't get much pushback at all. And again, the people that do are the ones that don't hire you anyways,
Yeah, they're going to be a problem anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We don't do like formal standards like that. Not that it's, we just don't. It's just more of an informal conversation that we have at the listing table,
Right.
right? Or whenever we're there on on a listing appointment. It's more of informal conversation. But it's, over the years it has worked. Yes.
Well, let me ask you something then. That is
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do when, like, say, for example, someone just texts you, hey, what's your commission? And, it's impossible to really say what it is in that moment because, they're looking for an answer. If they don't get that answer, they're moving on, but that might not be a good decision for them. So our rebuttal is like, hey, before I answer this is how we work. And we start with our standards and our guarantees, whether it's a text or a phone call. But when someone does that to you, how do you respond? Even though this was what we're supposed to talk about, I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, it would be for me, it's just like, hey, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. When's a good time for you to talk? I can either do Thursday or I can do Friday.
Just
Right.
tell me your commission, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that as long as we have a conversation about it. Would love to find out more about you, more about your house, whatever the deal is. But I'm not going to drop a commission on a text message. And if they don't
Yeah.
like it, I'll move on.
Then I respect that. I appreciate that. So that's from my top performer who's been in the game for a bit. Because I know a lot of newer agents, they start the conversation at a certain point, and by the time they get to their second or third text, they have just given away the house without even. And I think you struggle. And that's one of the struggles that real estate agents have. My experience, and you tell me, Dave, you can, and of course Alex and Jen too, is that they don't know how to respond to that, so they just commoditize themselves. But it's like, how do you buy a car by just looking at a picture of it, right? Like, you don't know the specs, you don't know anything about it, and then you're gonna, like, what's your price? And like, well, you don't even know what the offer is, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you make that connection when you don't even know the specs of the thing? Anyways, I was just kind of curious how you did that, and you
Yeah,
do it the right way.
my goal there would be to make it about a conversation about what they're looking for in an agent, right? I'd like to have a conversation about what it is they expect from an agent and find out, reinforce those things with whoever it is, right? Before you get all the way down to, commissions, right? Because it's about finding out what their expectations are and framing those expectations in a realistic way that you're going to have to pay for that stuff, right? And they may not mention stuff about, being able to negotiate or whatever the deal is. If they're just looking for rate, that's fine. Move on. I mean, I'm good with that, right? I don't have an issue with it at all.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What do you got, Alex?
Well,
You look
yeah,
like you
I was
want to
just
say
wondering.
something.
No, I was just was wondering. I know one of the things that you discuss is why reactive client management is costing us everything. That's one of the discussion points that you brought to our attention. So I wanted to hear your thoughts a little bit more about it and how you kind of handle that. Is it just setting the clear expectations? Is it anticipating their needs? Is it anticipating any issues that may come up and kind of coming with a solution before it actually is a problem?
Yeah, 100%. That's a big part of it, right? I mean, I think generally traditional sales and some people may disagree, and that's totally fine. I think traditional sales is a lot of scripts and dialogues and overcoming objections, right? I came from the pharma industry, and that's all it was, right? And I think that it's largely, I know people who are still in it, largely is still the same, right? So what I found out after being in real estate for a really long time is really not even all that long, but what I realized was that that is a defensive way to sell, right? If I am waiting for somebody to object to something, then they have already spoken it and reinforced it, right?
Good point.
And now I am battling it. I know what their hangups are 9 times out of 10, right? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's an inspection. I can go look at a house and I can evaluate what are my deal killers. I know what they're going to be from going through tens of thousands of houses over 23 years and selling thousands of them, right? I mean, I can look at a roof. I'm no roofer, but I can look at it and I can tell you whether it's going to come up on an inspection. I can look at a furnace. I can look at all of these things, right? So the issue is it's not scripts and dialogues and overcoming objections are bad. You have to have the knowledge, right? You have to have the knowledge. But I think the people get ahead of everything, right? I mean, it's as simple as I went on one yesterday where the guy's got a roof and it's questionable, right? So all I said was, how old is your roof? oh, I don't know. I think it's probably original. I look at the thing. I'm like, your house is built in, 1999.
Mm.
That means we're 24 years in. I said a roof in Colorado, this is true. If you talk to roofers, a roof in where we live is going to last you anywhere from 20 to 25 years. Rarely do you get 30 years out of a 30-year roof, right? So I told him, I'm no roofer, right? Just know, right, that that's probably going to become an issue on your inspection, right? I don't have to say anything else, right? He's like, you think? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean it's gonna, but I think it could, right? So all I've done is taken a seed, stuck it in the ground, right? And between now and the time of the inspection, if it shows up, he will have grown that seed, right? He doesn't even know he's going to grow it, but he's going to grow it, right? Because it didn't get lost on him and he knows it's a big ticket item. So when the inspection comes in, roof doesn't show up, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We didn't have a roof issue, but we've got these other ones. He's like, oh God, I'm glad, right? This is cool, right? But
Well, it seems like nothing. The roof?
correct. Yes, they're like, oh my gosh, it's just the furnace. Let's go, right? But the other issue is that if it is the roof, he is prepared. I prepared him. He prepared himself. And so when I'm having a conversation with him on a Saturday, because I got a deadline on a Monday or whatever, it's not some big knockdown, drag out, deal, kill, and deal, right? He already knows about it and he's prepared for it. 9 times out of 10, he is prepared. They have prepared themselves for that potential outcome. So I knew what the outcome could be. I just took it off the table right up front, right?
So how is it over there? So here in Florida, if there's less than 5 years of life left on a roof, we can't get insurance. And if you can't get insurance, you can't get a mortgage buyer. With that said, so what we do here, and I'm just trying to see how it is around the country. If we see, before we go list a property, we'll note the age of the roof, and if it needs a little, attention, if you will, we will send a roof inspector out there and give us a rough report of how much age is left on the roof. And we do that for 2 reasons. One, if the guy we send out or the girl we send out says, yeah, this thing got 2 years left, then we know that the buyer's inspection is going to say the same thing, right? So if that's the case, we already know that we're not going to obtain a mortgage buyer. And if that's the case, it will be really crappy to get a contract, do all this listing and all this stuff, get to a contract 3 weeks in, loans denied because they can't get insurance, hence can't get a mortgage. So we get ahead of it that way. How is it out where you guys are?
It's very similar, right? I mean, if it depends on the conversation you have with them. If somebody's like, nope, not gonna, it's fine, it's gonna be fine, whatever. Okay, fine. But they're like, really, you think so? Whatever. I'm like, yeah, I got a roofer. I can send him out here. We can find out for sure, right? You want to do that because that's a great thing to do before you put a sign in the yard, because then you've got no
Absolutely.
conflict of interest, right? So if we really think it's one of those things we want to do, and ours is usually if I can get a 3 to 5 year cert on a roof, we're fine here, right? But if it's anything less than that, we're cooked.
Yes.
So again, it's very similar type of a deal. We go through a lot of the similar things, but the biggest thing is just doesn't matter what these things are, find out about them up front and get rid of the deal killers. So our fallout rate's much less than it used to be by far, because we are getting ahead of these problems. And with our buyers, same type of stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't go through a house and show it to them with rose-colored glasses on. You got to let them know what it is, right? If they're really interested in it, have conversations about what's going to show up. Are they okay with that? Because otherwise, you're just wasting your time.
And also, that actually goes to the best real estate agents I ever worked with and the easiest ones to work with. They see things as potential issues and then solves them ahead of time. And also, on our side, on the list side, if we receive offers from agents and we have some couple red flags about the offer, I'm actually working one right now. That's why it's on top of my brain. These agents they get defensive when you ask questions about things you should ask questions. Like there's one that's putting minimal down payment and asking for a credit. So I ask basic questions. How are their ratios? If their payment, how much insurance premium did you calculate? Did you calculate future taxes and not today's taxes? Because you try to get ahead of those things, because what happens is if you have a buyer like that, then all of a sudden that buyer gets 3-4 weeks in, and then they get their updated estimated payment, and now they can't afford it. It kicks out the ratios. The deal is dead when you didn't even have to start that deal in the first place. But I noticed that in our industry, like people, especially newer agents, they just want to push deals through as opposed to getting ahead of it. And it's really important as a real estate. Like, why would you put your seller through that? Imagine they have their stuff in a moving truck. They have all that. It's something that you could have solved before even signing a contract. You didn't because you were too busy possibly thinking about the commission check, right?
Well, when they have the commission breath, that all they have is that, pushing the deal for the closing, they're removing reality glasses, as you can call it, and now they're not pointing out these key points to their client where down the line 3 weeks later they're stuck, they cannot move, their lease is up, they can't close. Now you've wasted 4 weeks of their time, your time, and everyone's time. Time is money. Time is something you can't get back. So
it's real money too, moving trucks, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to advocacy, right? I mean, if you've got to be a true advocate of your client, right? You've got to do that due diligence. That's what they're paying me for. They're paying me to sniff this stuff out.
Yeah.
Right. That is the deal. Because the worst thing you can do, and I've done it, I've had to be there, when I pull up in front of somebody's house the day before closing and there's a Mayflower van line parked out front and it's full of furniture, and I'm like, your deal's dead. Right. I don't know if you guys have done it, but it's absolutely, I've done it like 3 times, worst 3 days in my career. Right. There's nothing to stop that devastation. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's just part of the game. But
yeah. But for me, so everything about that on a contract, once we get it, I want to be damn good and sure we're going to be able to close it. And so I'll talk to whoever, even if I don't get the answers I need, I'll let the buyer's agent know, hey, listen, I need more information on this. I need the lender to cough up so we can make a very confident decision here if you want this house. I've never had nobody say no.
Yeah, I find myself over thinking things sometimes in those scenarios because I don't want that to happen, and I second guess my own skill set. I'm like, are you asking too many? Like, are you the pain in the butt? Like, are you like, you know what I mean? Are you causing problems that don't exist? And then I always have to rein myself in, and it's like, no. If I were hiring someone, I would want them to be this diligent too, But I also don't want my real estate agent killing the deal either. So it's a balance.
It's again too about setting the expectation even on that. Right? Here's the information I can gather, right? Here's the decision we have to make based on that information. We make that decision, and then I'll tell them, don't do a single thing until we're past the inspection. Make sure that anything you do can be reversed easily before we're done with loan commitment, right? Or whatever. And so they're on it. They understand. Because they're like, well, why is that? Because this thing could fall apart anytime, right? So I don't want you to be damaged by the fact that somebody else didn't do their job and we made the best decision we could, right? And as soon as you do that, then the other thing it does is it takes the pressure off you, right? They're in the decision together and they understand if they decide to go ahead and empty their house and move to Boise, that's fine. That's their decision, that we had the conversation, right? I'm off the hook for that, right? Not that I'm looking to get off the hook, but you know what I mean, right?
We'll still feel guilty anyways.
I would feel guilty, but not as guilty.
Yeah,
right?
not as
You did your part.
Like, you shouldn't drink and drive. Well, I'm drunk and I'm driving. Okay, then you're going to get what you get. I'm going to miss you, but, it ain't going to be as bad, right? When I tried to take your keys. Yeah. So it's a bad analogy, but you know what I mean? Again, it's about having the conversations up front with people to prepare them for what could come in a worst case scenario. And, it is so rare that I have anybody say, God, I wish we didn't do that. Even from not being a negative Nelly. It's just, here's the ramifications and it's important decisions.
It sounds like you've been able to scale without burning out. I feel like through a lot of that, your avenue has been just leveraging communication with your sellers and buyers, expectations, and then even your counterparts. I feel like that's probably a solid segue as to how you've been able to continue to scale while not driving yourself insane.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, a lot of it is to video, right? I don't know if you guys use video. We use video every process, every step of the process, right? They get a video.
And it's like that.
It's a 2 to 4 minute video.
We do.
Pardon me?
Well, I thought Chris was being sarcastic. Like, yeah, we do video. And then he kind of like jogged his mind. I'm like, yeah, we do the same thing.
But not like that. We don't do it. Like, we don't record each step of the process and send it to the client.
That's been on my to-do list for
20 years. Yeah.
Hey, Alex, freaking game changer. Game changer. Because I mean, how many phone calls do you get about inspection process?
The same
What's going to
conversation.
happen? How's this going to work? So at the very beginning, I let them know you're going to get videos. You choose to watch them or don't. Don't call me before you have watched it, right? And it just absolutely, we can carry 25, 30, 40 listings at a time. We get no phone calls about how inspections are going to work. We get no phone calls on how title work's going to work.
Yeah.
We get no phone calls on all of this stuff because every step of the way, there's a video explaining exactly what's going to happen, how this is going to impact you, what you have to do. And it's just like,
That's
it's
it, Dave.
unbelievable.
So
Yeah, next week, clear schedules out. We're all doing videos for every step of the way.
yeah, so these are evergreen. I mean, these are not tailored. These are not tailored to the specific client. These are just like steps of the process that you do once, and then you can put it out. So you don't do so we do video updates for our listings once a week where we screen record specifically to that property.
Yeah.
That's not what you're talking about, though.
No, we do that too, right? I
Oh,
mean,
you do
I
that
do a
too.
video update. Yeah, it's just like, hey, Jim, here's the deal. We've had pretty good activity. The things you do, right? But this is more like contractual or procedural. Anything's contractual or procedural, if there's a step in it that involves the seller, or even doesn't, but they need to know about, I've created a video and it goes out automatically. So the situation's done.
How
How's
is
it
it
go out
sent out?
automatically?
Yeah, my question was going to be the same. Just to really expand on the question, is it through like a workflow where you just plug in the date of this is when the inspection is, and then
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it specific software? Is it
Yeah, we just use Top Producer, right? We're still like dinosaurs because we still are so used to Top Producer. Our database is so freaking big that it's like
impossible to migrate.
It's too hard to transition.
Yeah.
I'll give you do you want one quick example? It just happened like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Do you guys have radon in Florida?
We do, but it's not like a thing like where it is elsewhere.
Okay, so it's a thing here. It's a thing here. And my assistant, so I do all this, we do this volume and I only have one assistant. That's it. For my side of the deal, it's just the two of us, right?
Wow.
So she came into my office, this is maybe, 6 months ago, 7 months, it was late last summer. And she's like, if I get one more phone call about freaking radon, because 3 years ago, the state of Colorado input radon into contracts, right? So it's like this highlighted thing, you should check your radon, blah, blah, blah. Before that, it wasn't a thing. So some, but not most of it. But she came into my office and she's like, I am so sick of radon calls. And I'm like, what do you mean? She tells me about it. And I said, well, we need to do a video for that. Right? She's like, we need to do something. And I'm like, how did this get by me? Right? I said, when you have this, let me know. We did a video. And since we did that video, I bet she's had 2 phone calls about radon. It's done. It's gone.
Wow.
Right?
Do you send out?
Huh?
Do you send out one video at a time as it gets to the process, or is there some emails that have like 2 or 3 videos of what to expect? And like when we first go on the market, here's what you should expect.
Yep. Yeah. Here's your listing process. Here's your showing feedback process. We used to get phone calls all the time about showing feedback. How come this? How come that? No. Here's how it works. I told you at the listing point, we're going to tell you again. Here's how this thing works. This is why it works this way. If you have questions or problems, let us know. But here's the expectation for it. Right? And it just is like, so there's so many systems. And so what we've done with expectation selling is gone through for every section of a procedural contract. That is 2 sections of the 11 sections of the modules, right? Is how do you do it? We've templated it, scripts, all of these things so people can easily put these things together and do these videos themselves. You can tinker with them and change them, do whatever you want to. Whatever I tell everybody, look for your pinch points. Whatever your pinch points are, that's where you can utilize something like that to remove it. Because you'll be like, it's unbelievable.
Is it just listing focus, or do you have for buyers as well?
Buyers too, right? Because they've got more questions than sellers.
Especially first timers.
Yeah. So you just go through the process, same process, and you do them, Chris, like you said, evergreen, right? So you don't have to reshoot them all the time and all that stuff. And you just let them know, don't call me until you've watched the video. And I tell you, here's the funny thing about it is my feedback from my clients at the end, I would think, one, they love my assistant, which figures, whatever. It really pisses me off. They're like, oh, Dave, you're great, but God, we love Tony.
Well, Dave, you're a high D personality. You're not too in tune with their emotional state like your assistant probably is.
Right? gospel.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the feedback we get, we have so many people, especially older, right? Just being honest, like older folks,
Mhm.
they love the videos. I
Really?
get comments. Oh, I get comments on them from them all the time. They're like, your communication was insane. The videos are amazing. We kept in process, we were in step with the process the whole way. And I mean, we never heard from them. I mean, it's kind of a bad thing, right? Because you just don't hear from them that much. I mean, so if you're trying, Jen, like you said, if you're trying to scale your business, right, and still maintain work-life balance, you can cut off, I have cut off thousands of phone calls every year by doing stuff like that.
I love it.
I
And
know
you
it,
only have to do it once.
dude, it's a one, I reshoot my videos about every 3 years because I get grayer, uglier, all of these things, right? So we do have to reshoot them, because everybody's like, "Guy, you look older than your video."
No,
Okay,
you don't. I still rock the same headshot from like 2012.
I know. I have those people. There's people, agents in our market. It's like their high school yearbook photo.
Yeah, it's a glamour shot.
Come on, you're killing me with that, right? But it's just that's what it's all built around. So here's the last thing I'll say about it. We get so caught up as an industry in more leads, more everybody. I don't know about you guys, but I get people busting me every day selling me something.
Oh God, yeah.
So the issue is we're in two things. Our industry is addicted to more. We're always led to believe that we have to have more, right? Because they're selling something. Somebody's selling something. Follow the money, right?
And you got
And then
FOMO.
the other thing is we're addicted to hustle culture. You get with a bunch of agents and everybody just can't wait to tell you how busy they are, right? They love it. It's like the busier you are putting out fires and doing stuff, that's like a badge of honor in our industry,
Ugh,
right? And so for me,
I don't
it's
want
like, how can I
I
be
don't want
Smokey the Bear? How can I be Smokey
I
the
don't
Bear?
want that badge. I want Dave your take on this of being able to scale in a way that I still can preserve my family time. I'm huge on family time. Like people call me,
Yeah,
I'm like I'm at the baseball field, can't talk right now. I'm watching my kid hit a home run. Don't
yeah,
call me.
yeah.
So I'm all about that. So I don't need that badge of honor, and I know what you're talking about because we hear it all the time. I'm like I don't
And
Mhm.
you have a lot of coaching programs that tell you work-life balance, like good luck, right? If you're going to have work-life balance, you're not going to be a producer, right? Or if you're going to have work-life balance, you're not going to have it if you're going to be a producer, right? Total BS. I am calling BS on it, but that's the way they suck you into more, right? You don't have to have more. You got to do better with what you got. And I absolutely 100% believe that. If my kill ratio is much, I don't need 100 bullets, right? If my kill ratio goes from 40% to 70%, right? I just need to do better with what I got. And so that's what this is all about. It's about, we've never looked for volume leads. I don't look for leads. I don't buy leads. I don't do any of that stuff because it's just like, I don't want to fumble through 1,000 leads to find 3 people that are going to end up buying or selling with me in the next 6 months. It's just not worth it to me.
It's not
wasting
worth it.
the ones that are the in between are just wasting your times or time
Yep.
killers.
So our
So
goal is not more, not trying to teach any, we're not trying to get you onto our CRM or get you onto this or get you to buy leads through this or whatever. It's simply to take the systems that we have, implement them with your clients, and meet you where you're at in your business model. I don't care if you sell 10 houses a year or 150. Some people can benefit it, some people can't. Some people have great systems. I get it. I'm not saying you're bad, but it's just to meet the agent where they are, to give them the one piece of stuff that we hear that they don't have enough of, and that's balance. And it's a high divorce rate in real estate. There's all of these things. The world's a tough place. Let's see if we can make it less tough by leveraging technology and other stuff.
yeah, it might as well. The technology exists. Is leverage it. So Dave, we're running out of time. I do have a question. Um, and it's probably an hour-long question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. you you do consistently 100 transactions. Well, this year you said it might not hit it. Okay, that's another conversation for another day. So maybe you have to come back for that one too. But 100 transactions, not flooding people into your CRM and not doing the traditional stuff. Are you telling me that basically you are mostly receiving inbound traffic calls for your services, or how are you getting?
I mean,
What's your lead gen model, I should say?
over the years, we've become, that was early on when we weren't doing a whole lot of the, I didn't have a big database, right? I couldn't mine a database when I didn't have one, right? My database used to be on the index cards, right?
An Excel sheet.
Yes. No, I didn't even have that. I had index cards. I could go, who's that? Okay, P's, whatever. And so now it's one of those things where it's largely referral, right? I mean, our clients come back they love us, right? We do a great job. It's rare that I see things come up on the market for resale that we're not involved in, right? That's a great place to be after all of these years. But we do, we spend we spend a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort to cultivate the client base that we already have, because we've sold thousands of houses in our marketplace.
That's the way to do it. You turn one client into two, turn there's two into four, so on and so on, and it scales.
But we still do really reach out to try to bring in new people, right? That's not something we've gotten away from. We still do that through a lot of different methods.
How do you tee that up with only a few minutes left and then just leave us there?
Did you see my eyes shift to the time?
I know. I'm like, what? Dave, can you come back in a couple weeks or so and fill that part in? Because I'm kind of curious. Yeah, let's do it, man. I like your energy.
Where can we find your teachings?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to meet smarter people than me, probably already have this morning, right? You won't meet a whole lot that sell more and have a better life balance. And it's just like, if you can help other people get it, that's the biggest way I know that I can give back to an industry that's been amazing to me, right? And teach a new generation of real estate agents who are going to really have to become efficient in order to make it, right? The inefficiency days are done.
So what Alex is asking is, you're here for a reason.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, do you have a website? What do you want to push?
Sorry about that, Alex. You can go to www.expectationselling.com, right? We have a course there, full videos, workbooks, blah, blah, blah. It's great. We can follow us on social channels at Expectation Selling. And we're getting started. Relatively new program. We've just launched it in the last month or so. But so far feedback's been amazing. And we're really we're really pumped about it, right? We're still working agents, right? We're still busting our hump every day, slinging houses. But it is one of those things to where we're excited about it, because it's a game-changing thing if people want to put in the effort to do it.
Dave, is expectations selling or plural or singular?
Singular. Expectationselling.com.
Dave, before you get off though, I'm doing this live.
Yeah.
I don't think it works, dude.
I think you're misspelling it. I'm on it.
Put it in.
I got a GoDaddy notice.
Just Google it then, because you don't know how to spell it.
Oh, you're probably right. I probably spelled it wrong. Expectation. No, that's right.
I'm on it right now.
Alex, are you on?
I am. It's a beautiful
This
website.
Is a Chris problem. This is a Chris problem.
Oh, that's a Chris problem. You're right. Okay, it works. Disregard, we're going to edit that part out. It is expectation singular selling.com.
Did you say singular?
Yeah, no, I know he did. I'm correcting my stupidity. All right. So with that, Dave, you're going to come back in a couple weeks. I'm going to reach out to you because you left a freaking Easter egg that I want to open up and find, and at the very end of that,
we have our first.
But I do appreciate your time. Yeah,
no, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed this one a lot. More than most of them. So you guys have been really super. So
we should be a regular then.
That's right.
Happy to do it.
All right, guys.
But happy. Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Dave.